Hi, this is Blake here with Worn and Wound. Today, we're talking about the Sinn EZM1, the classic from 1997 that kicked off the whole collection of EZM watches that we know and love today. If you enjoyed this content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. This is the original mission timer. The EZM1 actually stands for Einsatzmesser. I think I said that right, which practically translates to mission timer. This is a watch that was released in 1997 alongside the EZM2, which was more of a dive-focused watch, which made use of their hydro technology, an oil-filled case. The EZM1 was built at the behest of a commanding officer in the German Customs Authority unit, an elite armed unit within the Zoll. The goal was simple, a highly water-resistant chronograph with excellent legibility. How Sinn went about accomplishing this was unique, of course, and the result is one of the most incredible tool watches of the past 25 years. The concept worked well enough that they turned it into a production model, housing the Lamagna 5100. Ultimately, around 3,000 of these watches were made. Early examples, such as the one here, have the 3H on the dial, signifying the use of tritium. Later samples have the AR on the dial, signifying the argon gas that fills the case. That case is constructed of titanium, and the head of the watch weighs approximately 60 grams. It's very light on the wrist, even with the full titanium bracelet. Additionally, the use of titanium gives it that kind of dark gunmetal color, which differentiates it from the steel. Looks pretty badass on a gray NATO. There's nothing unusual about a diving chronograph, of course. How Sinn have gone about this one is a little unusual, however. The first thing you'll notice is all the controls are along the left-handed side of the case. So this was meant to make it easier for forces to actuate the chronograph using their thumb instead of their index finger. Being on the left-handed side, it's the bottom button at 8 o'clock that starts the chronograph and the button at 10 o'clock that resets the chronograph. This also means that the watch winds clockwise rather than counterclockwise. It's a little unusual to get used to, but once you have, it's a lot of fun to use. Additionally, there's no the screw-down protectors on the buttons, but it's still water resistant, which is kind of a neat feature. Second, you'll notice there's no subdials happening on the dial here. There's no timing hands immediately apparent at a glance other than the timing seconds hand. So the timing seconds hand is where you'd expect to find it, parked right at 12 o'clock, and right underneath it is the timing minute hand. So they are stacked on top of each other, and all four hands originate at the hand stack at the center of the dial. In everyday use, this means you are limited to just the hour hand and the minute hand. You don't have to focus on any small subdials, and it's all very straightforward once it's in use. This creates excellent legibility, of course, even if you're just reading the time. To help, the dial is matte black, and all the printing on it is red. So it kind of fades away when not in use. A quick glance or in a dark environment, you don't see the Sinn branding, the 3H, or even the date at all. You really have to look for it if you want that information. This is, of course, by design. So when you look at the watch, all you're seeing is the hands, the minute index, and the hour markers. Additionally, the timing hands are very discreet. About 3/4 of the hands are black, with just the tips receiving the lume. So when you're looking to get a read on the time, you see just these floating tips kind of moving around the dial. Another feature I love about this watch is the bezel. It's bidirectional, and it's a countdown bezel. So this means if you want to time something for 30 minutes, you put the 30 at the minute hand, and then once the minute hand arrives at the triangle, you know that your time has elapsed. It feels a little more straightforward and practical in everyday use, and it's a feature that I've come to really enjoy on a few of the watches that I have with a bidirectional bezel. The bezel slopes upwards towards the dial opening, and this leads to a domed crystal, and this is one of my least favorite components of this watch as it really hinders the visibility. This catches any light around you and reflects it back into your eye. It's an ironic feature given the ultimate goal of this watch to be extremely legible. Conversely, watches like the EZM2 or even newer watches like the U50 have a flat crystal that appears to be practically invisible. Now, the titanium case measures about 40 millimeters in diameter and about 47 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, and about 16 millimeters in thickness. The case has a nice profile though, so it's not a huge vertical wall on the case side, so it wears very well, and the 40 millimeter footprint is quite comfortable on wrist. That said, it's not exactly a thin watch, and if you're wearing it on something like a NATO, it will sit up off your wrist a little bit. So maybe shy away from the suits when you're wearing this one. Now, in the 2 o'clock lug, you'll notice a hole with the desiccant in it. This is a capsule that's meant to capture moisture that would have otherwise ended up in the movement. This is a feature unique to Sinn, and it's something that you find on even their modern watches today. So this is a watch that's been out of production for around 20 years, but they have brought it back twice in the form of the EZM 1.1. This is a watch that utilizes the same layout with the different movement and upsizes the case to 43 millimeters, so it wears very differently from the original. Now, I really love this watch for a lot of reasons. It's very unusual, from the left-handed controls to the chronograph layout, the bidirectional bezel. It just works. It's a very practical watch, it's comfortable, and it makes a lot of sense in everyday wear, even though it was designed for the types of activities I don't find myself frequently engaged in. Unfortunately, these watches are a little tricky to find these days. There were about 3,000 of them made, so they do come up from time to time. However, prices can vary from around $6,000 to $10,000. In total, I can't think of a cooler watch though from this era. So if you like hardcore German tool watches that still make a lot of sense in everyday wear, this is a perfect watch for you. But we want to know what you think. Is this a watch you'd like to see Sinn return to in its original format? Is this a type of chronograph you'd like to see more often from other brands? Let us know down in the comments below. Catch all of my thoughts on morningwound.com right now. And as always, thanks for tuning in.